This is Mystery MTG Damien, and let me help you become more informed about competitive Magic. Let's jump into it. With the Regional Championship qualifier season well underway, the focus of the Magic competitive community has been on breaking open the Pioneer format, perhaps with the help of new additions from recently released March of the Machine and its sister set, Aftermath. With Pioneer suffering from a bit of stagnation among the Tier 1 decks, with mainstays like Rakdos Midrange and Mono Green Ramp still making up the majority of the metagame after over a year of set releases, players have been innovating and exploring new archetypes and card combinations in order to find the next sweet breakout brew. Let's now take a look at some of the new kids on the block and the effect they may have on the rapidly evolving Pioneer metagame. BOROS AGGRO. The hottest new deck of the week is almost certainly BOROS AGGRO, taking first and second place in this past weekend's Magic Online Pioneer Challenge. The deck is trying to go wide by putting as many small bodies on the battlefield as possible, by playing 14 creatures that cost 1 mana or less, as well as spells that produce multiple creatures like Resolute Reinforcements, Forbidden Friendship, Clarion Spirit, and the new March of the Machine edition, Gleeful Demolition. The version of the deck that took second place went with an even more explosive build, running 4 Burning Tree Emissary to chain spells and clog up the battlefield early with a ton of small bodies. With the board flooded with critters, it's simply a matter of convoking a Venerated Loxodon or kicking a Reckless Bushwhacker to pump up the team and quickly close the game. Running a mere 18 to 20 lands gives the deck a high spell density, making mana flood a non-issue, and it can also keep the gas flowing with the 4 copies of new Aftermath card, Knight Errant of Eos, which often costs only 1 mana due to Convoke. This combination of speed, explosive power from a big Convoke turn, plus the ability to refill the tank with Knight Errant of Eos, suddenly makes BOROS AGGRO a real contender, and a deck we will almost certainly be seeing more of in the coming weeks. 5-color Fires of Invention. Another interesting list that took a top spot in the top 8 of Saturday's challenge, 5-color Fires of Invention, is an 80-card Yorion Companion deck that tries to control the board early with cheap removal like Chain to the Rocks and Leyline Binding, plus sweepers like Deafening Clarion and Supreme Verdict out of the sideboard in order to get namesake card Fires of Invention on the battlefield, allowing its pilot to then begin casting free spells each turn. The deck also has access to several combo packages, the first being Transmogrify to sacrifice a token produced by Esika's Chariot or Birth of Meletus, or by cycling a Shark Typhoon in order to cheat an Atraxa Grand Unifier into play early. We also see a second backdoor combo inserted into the deck in the form of discarding an early Atraxa with Bitter Reunion or Fable of the Mirror Breaker in order to reanimate it a turn or two later with the new Invasion of Tolvada. Another new battle, Invasion of Alara, which finds spells that cost 4 or less, is an excellent way to dig deep into the deck in order to hit combo pieces like Transmogrify or Fires of Invention. With additional giant monsters like Sire of Insanity and Worldspine Worm lurking in the sideboard, the deck can even vary its Transmogrify Tolvada targets depending on which threat hits the opponent the hardest. Will the new battles be enough to pull this 80-card monster up to the level of the other Tier 1 decks? Perhaps the next regional championship will hold the answer. IZZET Control. Wow, it's the ghost of Standard past! This IZZET Control deck sports not 1, but 2 cards that were so oppressive in Kaldheim's Standard that they had to be banned. While it's rare to see a Control deck stray too far from the tried and true blue-white mana base we've come to expect in Pioneer, this 4th place list from a recent Magic Online challenge is doing just that. Straddling the line between combo and control, this IZZET deck aims to lock down the early game with board control cards like cheap red removal in Fiery Impulse, Anger of the Gods, and the incredible Bone Crusher Giant, plus blue spells to interact on the stack, such as Make Disappear and Divide by Zero. This buys the deck enough time to set up a turn where it can play a Galvanic Iteration or the new Chandra Hope's Beacon into an Alaron's Epiphany, preferably from the exile zone, in order to copy the Epiphany and take 2 or even 3 turns back to back to end the game without your opponent getting another untap step. With a smooth 2-color mana base, the deck can get away with playing not only a lower land count than Control typically runs, but also 2 copies of excellent creature land Hall of Storm Giants and a couple of Field of Ruin to ruin greedy mana bases. The aforementioned Divide by Zero provides the deck with a tight little lesson learned package in the sideboard, consisting of Teachings of the Archaics to refill the hand, Environmental Sciences to help consistently make land drops, and Mascot Exhibition as an alternate win condition or just a way to gum up the board. Naturally, this deck is also the perfect home for another card that is almost certainly going to join the previous 2 on the standard ban list in Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Did newly printed Chandra Hope's Beacon give the Epiphany deck the shot in the arm that it needed to compete with the other Tier 1 decks in Pioneer? We'll have to wait and see as the metagame develops. Mono Black Waste Not. While the period just after the creation of the Pioneer format was dominated by Mono Black, those days are long behind us. However, with recent powerhouse black spells like Shouldered the Apocalypse, Invoke Despair, and Meathook Massacre being printed, black is back on the map, baby. The core of this mid-range deck revolves around the enchantment Waste Not, which generates board presence, mana, or card advantage whenever the opponent discards a card. With a full 16 main deck ways to make the opponent discard cards, it's easy to snowball out of control with Waste Not in play. The full force Shouldered the Apocalypse in the main deck forces the opponent to pay a steep price to try and refill their hand once it's been left in shambles via all the discard effects. This hand disruption not only generates resources when Waste Not is on the board, but is also very effective at breaking up the game plan of opposing combo and control decks, and by making room for cards like Cling to Dust and Go Blank in the main deck, it's almost as if this list is pre-boarded against graveyard-based decks like Abzan Greasefang. With excellent removal in the form of Fatal Push, Power Word Kill, and Shouldered's Edict, plus a bevy of board sweepers in the sideboard consisting of Ritual of Soot and Extinction Event, the mono-black deck is capable of slicing through creature-based strategies with ease. The single-color mana base allows the deck to pump up its power level by playing a ton of non-basic lands, ranging from a playset of Castle Lochthwain to keep the cards flowing, to Field of Ruin and Gaia Reach Sanitarium to harass its opponent's resources, to creature lands like Hive of the Eye Tyrant and Mutavault to apply pressure. Could Mono Black Waste Not really herald the return to Tier 1 for this single-colored deck? We'll find out in the coming weeks.